Is something actually cringe? Or are we all just secretly obsessed with it? Or, better question, why does something the internet calls cringe end up becoming a cultural phenomenon that people binge 27 times? How does a pastel-coded teen love triangle suddenly crush the viewership of shows with 10x the budget? And how does a series people roast online end up with a fandom so intense that brands, airlines, and literal sports leagues start fangirling over it? Nothing is random. None of this is luck. It is pure, calculated marketing psychology. And today, we're breaking down 3 powerful marketing secrets that transformed a cliché, embarrassing YA series into a global obsession, the #1 title in over 100 countries. Each secret builds on the next. And yes, there's a bonus secret at the end that ties everything together so intensely that once you hear it, you'll never look at branding the same way again. But here is the real plot twist. Every single strategy used in this transformation can be applied to your life, your dreams, your personal brand, or your future career. Because branding isn't about logos or aesthetics. It's about how people see you before you even speak. Your future clients, future boss, future partner, they're already forming a picture. The question is, are you choosing what they see? So let's rewind to where this all began. The story starts with a shy teenage girl, Belly, who spends every summer at the same beach house with the same 2 brothers she's grown up with. One summer, she takes off her glasses, loses the braces, and suddenly every male within Wi-Fi range is in love with her. 2 brothers, 1 girl, a house full of childhood memories, romance, jealousy, a glow-up montage straight out of 2009. If cliché was a genre by itself, this show would be the cover photo. People roasted the acting. They roasted the plot. They roasted the dialogue. They roasted everything. The internet dragged it like it was a sport. And yet, it quietly became the weekly serotonin dose of millions of people. How does a story that should have been buried by its own cheesiness suddenly become bigger than prestige dramas with cult fan bases? Why did viewers who started watching ironically end up crying real tears over imaginary teenagers? Why did the internet start forming intense alliances over which brother deserved love more? To answer all that, you have to understand the first secret that here's a truth nobody wants to admit. People don't hate cringe. They hate forced coolness. Cringe that is self-aware, sincere, and shameless is irresistible. This show never tried to be edgy. It didn't chase dark aesthetics. It didn't pretend to be something it wasn't. It leaned into softness, awkwardness, innocence, and first love chaos. And that became its weapon. When something embraces its vulnerability so openly, it becomes disarming. The viewer doesn't feel judged. They feel safe. They feel nostalgic for a time when they didn't try to be ironic or detached. It's reverse psychology. People tune in to see how bad it is, but staying becomes a guilty pleasure, and then suddenly it's not even guilty anymore. That's the trick. Cringe is simply sincerity that hasn't gone viral yet. And here's the part most people miss. This isn't just about the show. If you have a business idea, a new style, a video concept, or a dream you're embarrassed to start, that cringe you're avoiding might be the only unique thing you bring into a saturated world. Your vulnerability is your differentiator. But this type of emotional connection doesn't work without the second secret. What if the success of a show was never about the plot, but about the feeling it brings back? This story doesn't sell romance. It sells a time in your life that you think you outgrew. Pre-iPhone summers, awkward crushes that felt like life or death, long car rides, soft lighting, warm friendships, and that one song you played on repeat because every lyric felt like destiny. It packaged a memory and sold it back to us. Nostalgia is the closest thing to emotional time travel. And in branding, nostalgia is one of the most profitable emotions on earth. It makes people feel safe. It makes them feel understood. It reminds them of who they used to be or who they wish they were. This show uses nostalgia the way luxury brands use scarcity, intentionally. Pastel colors everywhere, soft silhouettes, sun-washed scenes that look like they were filtered through childhood, outfits that feel effortless, familiar, and attainable. Viewers don't just like the aesthetic, they can copy it. From the hair, to the cardigans, to the simple sneakers that look like something your mom bought you in middle school, but suddenly feel iconic again. And that's the genius. A style can only become a cultural movement if the audience can recreate it. The visual softness, the familiar outfits, the vintage-coded energy, all of it pulls people into a world that feels safe to remember and easy to live in. But nostalgia alone isn't enough. The real explosion comes from what happens emotionally. This is the most powerful part of the puzzle. People don't fall in love with shows. They fall in love with how shows make them feel. This story created emotional investment by turning the plot into a mirror. Viewers weren't just watching belly chews between Conrad and Jeremiah. They were projecting their own first loves, heartbreaks, insecurities, identities, and teenage memories onto the characters. That's emotional brand equity. When a brand becomes personal, not demographic-based, not age-based, identity-based. That's why the internet formed teams. Team Conrad, Team Jeremiah. People weren't just choosing a character. They were choosing which version of themselves they resonated with more. This kind of emotional segmentation is how fandoms turn into tribes. Team Apple versus Team Android. Team Edward versus Team Jacob. Team Nike versus Team Adidas. Once a brand becomes emotional, not logical, the obsession begins. People defend their team like it's a piece of their identity. They debate, they argue, they cry, they scream. They watch episodes over and over for comfort. That's when a story becomes a phenomenon. And just when you think the formula ends here, it doesn't. Because the final secret takes all these pieces and amplifies them tenfold. Imagine finishing an episode, closing your screen, walking away, but the show still follows you. Not visually, not through dialogue, but through sound. That's what the soundtrack does. Iconic artists whose music already represents heartbreak, girlhood, longing, and softness, woven into the exact emotional peaks of the episodes. Every song becomes a memory anchor. Even when you're not watching, you're replaying the scenes in your head like echoes from an old summer. And because the songs are already beloved by millions, the show piggybacks on the emotional loyalty people have toward the artists. Fans of those artists automatically become curious viewers. It's organic marketing disguised as aesthetic decision-making. Warm vocals, dreamy tracks, soft instrumentals. Every piece is chosen to attach itself to your emotions so tightly that the show lives in your mind long after the credits. This is sensory marketing, when a brand uses your senses to lock an emotional memory. That is how a cringe teen drama becomes a top-ranked phenomenon. The real takeaway: how do you apply this? Think of your favorite shows. Think of your favorite brands. Think of anything you've been obsessed with lately. There's always a reason you cared. A feeling you were chasing, a memory that resurfaced, an identity you aligned with. Whatever dream you're working toward, a project, a business, a creative idea, ask yourself, how can I make people feel something? How can I make them remember something about themselves? What emotion do I want people to associate with me? What am I avoiding because I think it's cringe? And what if that cringe is actually the one thing that makes me unforgettable? Everything you want is on the other side of starting, even if it feels embarrassing at first. Everyone's early work is cringe. Everyone's beginning feels awkward. But cringe is just the first step of becoming iconic. If you learned something today, use one idea, just one, to shape your next move. Whether it's your brand, your style, your confidence, or your new creative vision, start today. Because this isn't about a TV show. It's about how people fall in love with stories and how stories shape the world we live in. And your story deserves to be told, even if it starts a little cringe.